The buildings up on the right there, the crescent of Regent Street, you can see. As we come around, you'll see that the architecture gets more intricate. So the crescent of Regent Street, just up heading on the right there. So up and on the left, you've got you can see the flag of Aqua Scutum. Aqua Scutum coming from the Latin for water shield, is where the first raincoat was made, rather appropriate for London on most days. Down on your right, you've got Austin Reed. Their supplies of clothing to the royal family. And up in front of that, you've got the purple flag of Veeraswamy, the first Indian restaurant in central London. So Mahatma Gandhi used to eat when he was here on state visits. So Regent Street was built as a purpose-built shopping street. You got these shop fronts here, and originally there would have been apartments for the aristocracy above them. It was redesigned in the mostly in the 1920s. Most of the buildings were ripped down and redesigned in the 1920s. But the buildings up in front and on the right now were the original buildings which stood here on Regent Street. And the ones on the very end are the ones I'm talking about. So we're just coming up to our stop number 8 now, which is for Piccadilly Circus. As I was saying before, to the left you've got the streets of Soho. Most of central London falls under the area of Westminster, the city of Westminster, which has very strict licensing laws for alcohol. In Soho, that was one of the few places in London where you used to be able to get a late drink. So a lot of jazz bars grew up there, including Ronnie Scott's, which is where Jimi Hendrix had his last performance. It's also where the Rolling Stones and the Beatles had a few informal gigs as well. So Soho has always been home to one form of entertainment or another. One of the earliest forms of entertainment in the 19th century, there was the Fighting Women of London. People in the 19th century, the early 19th century, were obsessed with bare knuckle boxing, and in Soho they used to have these fighting women who would fight one another with a £half-crown coin in each hand, and whoever dropped the coin first would lose the fight. They also used to fight with sticks and long swords as well. Anyone coming down for this stop, Piccadilly Circus? No one coming down. No one coming down for this stop. So, as I was saying, very strict licensing laws in Westminster, and also very strict advertising laws in this area as well, on the Crown Estate. As I was saying before, this whole street was property of the Crown, which is why it's called the Crown Estate, and that's why we've got crowns on top of the lampposts here. So there are very strict advertising laws here until the 1920s, actually, which is why the only place that one of the only places where they used to be able to advertise was on Piccadilly Circus, which is coming just up ahead of us in a moment. So, as I said before, one of the only places that are allowed to advertise here on Piccadilly Circus is the corner up there on your left. And some of those signs there have been there since 1908. Sorry, the first sign to be hung there was in 1908, which was Perrier water. The second thing to be advertised there was Bovril, but these signs here have been put up recently. Most of them high definition screens, all but one, except which is the Sanyo sign down at the bottom, which has been there for 35 years. Down on the right there you've got a column, which is a statue to the Grand Old Duke of York. So don't worry, that's nothing to do with Trafalgar Square, it's a different column, not Nelson's column. It's the column of the Grand Old Duke of York. He was a general of the British Army, and that was under King George III. You've got the statue of Eros there on your right. First aluminium statue in central London. So if you confess your love to your sweetheart under the statue of Eros, they'll love you forever. If you do it on the stroke of midnight. I did that with 3 of my ex-girlfriends. You see them jumping off the building on the right there. Actually, the 3 angels of grace, those ladies jumping off the building there. I headed up to our stop for the Theatre Royal Haymarket now. This is where Tommy Cooper, the British comedian, had his last performance. He died on stage there in 1979. So we're just going to stop now for number 9 Haymarket. This will take you, if you come off here, you can get off for Leicester Square and all the attractions around here. A lot of the theatres are based in this area.
Does hay was sold here once?
This is called Haymarket because they used to sell oranges here.
Okay.
There was a very famous orange seller here called Nell Gwyn. She used to sell her wares both here and at Covent Garden Market as well. She was one of the 39 mistresses of King Charles II, who was on the throne from 1660.
39 mistresses.
She was, as I said, she was an orange seller and an actress, but they did used to sell hay here as well. Hay was the mainstay of the market here, which is why it's called Haymarket, and they sold hay for the King's Mews, which were on what is now modern-day Trafalgar Square. So this is where they used to keep the King's horses. That's from the reign of King Henry VIII. So there used to be a big market here on Haymarket, and until the late 18th century, it used to be home to a lot of dens of ill repute as well. So it's charted in a lot of detail in the diaries of James Boswell, who was also the biographer of Samuel Johnson, who wrote the first English dictionary. So up on the right there is Her Majesty's Theatre. It will become His Majesty's Theatre when Charles becomes king. That's when he'll become King George. He's taken the honour of the title of King George due to the fact that there are negative connotations associated with being called King Charles. The first King Charles was executed in 1649 at the end of the English Civil War, and the executioner held up his head and said, "Behold the head of a traitor." So Prince Charles doesn't really want to be called King Charles because of that. The second King Charles died of scrofula as well, as did a lot of his 39 mistresses. He decided to take the title of King George, also to honour his grandfather, who was a real stalwart in London during the Second World War. So this is our stop now for Trafalgar Square, stop number 10. You can get off here, the site of Trafalgar Square, the Church of St Martin in the Fields, and the National Gallery. Anyone coming down for this stop? No one coming down. Excellent.
Yes, goes up.